Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, your host here at Crimes Untold, you know, the awkward side of YouTube, where I talk about some true crime, and I'm just a strange person. Yeah, also, if I sound strange, it's because I have the big C, however which way that, you know, looks normal to you. I don't want to say the word because a lot of people are demonetized because of it. I'm not monetized at this point. I would have to get to 1,000 subscribers to get there, but just to be safe. So if I sound a little funky, if I sound a little weird, my voice is off, if I look a little strange, don't be alarmed. It's because I have it. Anywho, so today we're going to be following up with the Jane Britton case by talking about Michael Eugene Sumpter. So Michael Sumpter is the person that killed Jane Britton. So who was he? He was a serial killer that was active from 1969 to 1972 in the Boston area. So his crime started from the age of 19. When he had his first recorded crime. This was in November, so specifically November 27th of 1965. This is with a purse snatching, and this happened on Washington Street in Boston. He was sent to MCI Concord for a smaller prison sentence. So all of the jails I'm talking about in this case, I'll start with MCI. So it's Middlesex Correctional Institution. If you don't know what MCI is, if you're not from the East Coast, you're not going to understand a lot of the terminology when it comes to police or to prisons. Also, the way I pronounce things in this video is the way you pronounce them. So anybody that's not from this area is going to be like, oh, she didn't pronounce that right. Bitch, I grew up in Essex County. Anywho, so he was sent to MCI Concord in order to do his sentence. Apologies. So after being released, this is when his crimes would escalate. And what I mean by that is he would commit his second crime in January of 1972. Or, well, let me backtrack that. So he's in MCI Concord. He's released. When he's released, he would escalate. His second crime he committed, in which he would go to jail for, would be in 1972. So his first murder he commits is in 1969. He commits a second one in 1972, which I'll talk about these ones in order, like our 3 murder victims that he's connected to. So we've already talked about the first one, which is Jane Britton. And I'll talk about the other 2 after I kind of give you a synopsis of his crime spree. So he was arrested in June of 1972, and this was on charges of assault and battery, and he would be sentenced 6 to 10 years, in which he would end up having a furlough on this in November 20th of 1973. If you don't know what a furlough is, basically it means he gets a temporary leave. But he ended up, after his leave was over, he failed to return to MCI Norfolk, which is where the prison he was supposed to be in. And he failed to return to that. So, and he ended up being, he was evading law at this point. And he would claim his last victim. So 8 days after his final murder, which happened in December of 1972, he was arrested. And basically he was arrested because he was found to have a stolen purse on him in Marsh Chapel. He would be charged with assault and battery of a police officer, felony possession of a firearm as well. Because he was a convicted felon, you are not allowed to carry a firearm. That is an automatic felony, and it is a violation of your parole and of your probation. Following his arrest, he was remanded to MCI Walpole, but he would be sent back to MCI Norfolk. He did have a work release program that he was a part of. I'm unsure why he had this, because of his excessive amounts of his very, aggravating crimes that he has. Assault and battery does not allow you to have a work release. I don't know. But this never stopped him from what he was doing. With the release, he was able to scour the surroundings to find his next victim, which he would have his next victim. He would attack a 19-year-old college student. So he went up to her, asked her if he could have some water. She agreed. She let him into her place, and he had some water, and then said he had to go to the bathroom. So he comes out, and he's got rubber gloves on.
Ugh, no. Run, girl, run.
So he is wearing these rubber gloves. He then gags her with tissues and ties her hands and ties her up, basically. He rapes her after forcing her to commit sexual acts on him. So she's forced to do these acts on him, and then he then rapes her. After committing the rape, I don't know why he didn't follow through, but he fled. He fled the scene. This 19-year-old was then able to identify him as her attacker, and he was arrested, then found guilty and convicted. He was sentenced to 15 to 20 years, and he was sent back to MCI Walpole. He died in prison. He died on August 10th, 2001, and he died from cancer. So following his death, they took a sample of his DNA that they ended up putting in the DNA bank. This was great. So this is when they were able to connect him to the murder of Jane Britton, and they were able to connect him to 2 of his other victims. So with this connection to these 2, so basically they connected him to the 2 subsequent murders after Jane Britton before him being connected to the murder of Jane Britton. And this is due to the fact that his brother actually submitted a DNA sample. That way the police could make sure and cross-reference that he was the one to commit that murder. So this is why DNA is so great when it comes to the true crime world, because this keeps them accountable for the crimes they commit. So we already know about Jane Britton. That's victim number 1. Victim number 2 is Ellen Faith Rutchick. So she's a native from St. Paul, Minnesota. She was 24 years old at the time of her murder, and she was a secretary at Colonnade Hotel. So Sumpter would attack her after entering her Back Bay apartment on January 5th of 1972. He would strangle her to death with a cord from a stereo speaker. He stripped her body naked of any clothes and then left her body on the couch of her apartment before leaving, but he left the door kind of ajar. So a coworker of hers was very concerned when she didn't show up for work. And this coworker decided to, hey, I'm going to go check on her. So goes to her apartment, finds the door open slightly, and finds her dead on her couch. Now, she was only wearing a torn bra and a house coat. If you don't know what a house coat is, basically it's a robe that you wear around your house. That's what a house coat is. It's like a fancier version of a bathrobe, which is kind of cool. My mom has one. My grandmother always wore one. It's something, maybe it's just an East Coast thing, or maybe it's just a Massachusetts thing. I don't know, but we always had one. I don't have one anymore. I got rid of it because I don't have any that fit me. I have a bathrobe, but most of the time I just wear a hoodie. That way I am comfy. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. When I read it, I was like, oh my god, it's bringing me back to childhood. I feel so old thinking about this, which is it's kind of funny, because not everybody's like, what is a house coat? Not everybody's going to realize what that is, unless you're from this area, unless that's like, I know people know what a smoking jacket is, which is what Hugh Hefner basically lived in, but there's not a lot of people know exactly what it is. Anywho, our last victim is Mary Lee McClain. So Mary Lee McClain was just like our previous victim. She was 24 years old at the time, and she lived in Beacon Hill. Beacon Hill is a very sought after area in Boston, I'll say. Sumpter, when he was evading police, he was stumbling upon the area of Beacon Hill. And this is on December 12th of 1973. He used the fire escape, which, if you're not familiar with apartment buildings, fire escapes are very common because there is no additional point of exit in case of a fire, so hence why fire escapes are very popular. Same thing in New York. So he goes up the fire escape of the apartment of Mary Lee McClain, who's a secretary, and she's 24 years old. So McClain had 2 roommates too, and there was a male friend that was there in the apartment. None of them saw or heard anything, which is mind-blowing. So the next day, Mary only had a nightgown on, but she was found dead. And she died due to asphyxia. I'm assuming her roommates went in to wake her up because she wasn't awake to go to work. And this is when they found her. So they called police. The police come, they question the other tenants in the building and other residents on the block. One of them said that they heard muffled screaming coming from her apartment. And they then heard what sounded like somebody leaving through the fire escape moments later. So obviously, 8 days after her murder, this is when Sumpter is caught in Marsh Chapel. Yeah. So those are his 3 victims that he has. His 3 murder victims that he has. And then obviously he has his rape victim. So I wanted to do a standalone video on him. That way it's not just about Jane Britton. She has her own standalone video, but it also is about his 2 other victims. Because sometimes there's serial killers where we get so caught up in specific victims, and some of them just dwindle away. They don't get a lot of the limelight. And this is kind of what happened with Ellen and with Mary, but when the advancements in DNA technology happened, they were able to figure out who killed them first rather than Jane. And I wanted to kind of set it up this way because Jane's was more publicized and her findings, if you will, of figuring out that Michael Sumpter killed her was more publicized in 2018 than it was with Ellen and Mary when theirs happened years prior. So that, my friends, is Michael Eugene Sumpter, a very bad man who terrorized Boston. And thinking about it, I think I said 1969 to 1972 at the beginning of this video, but it's actually 1973. So apologies again. I'm very big C brain right now, so if I say some things that don't make sense, I apologize. I will edit them out. But anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, turn your post notifications on all, that way you know whenever I upload.